Hello, good listeners. You're tuned in to Tales from the Mennonite Heritage Archives, where we share stories about people, places, and events from Mennonite history. I'm your host, Dan Dick. Today, we're bringing you part 2 of my conversation with Maria Lotsmanova from October of 2025. Maria previously worked at Moscow's Gulag History Museum of Soviet Repressions. Her personal research focuses on her great-grandfather, Jacob Petrovich Janzen, who was forced into a special settlement and then the Gulag system during the Stalin regime in the former Soviet Union. In part 1, we left off with a discussion about Jacob's final testimony to Soviet authorities. Today, we pick up on what it means for victims of forced labor camps to be rehabilitated, and discuss threats to archival institutions in Ukraine since the Russian invasion of 2022. To make the most of this episode, I recommend listening to part 1 first. Here now is part 2 of our conversation. In my preparation for this chat, I was introduced to the process of posthumously rehabilitating oppressed people in Russia. Can you share what that means and what benefits it brings?
Basically, in the 90s was the main time when people would deal with this kind of documents. They would get some, not many, but some benefits from the state. My grandmother also got something.
You're talking about some kind of compensation for the hardship and oppression that your ancestors went through.
Exactly, yeah, some compensation and social benefits.
And I think there's some documentation also showing that the government sent to these people evidence that says they've been rehabilitated.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, basically you get a reference or confirmation that you were rehabilitated according to the law, blah, blah, blah. I was doing that because I rehabilitated some of my ancestors mostly in 2019. That would refer to special settlers cases. So people who went to the Gulag or were executed, many of them were rehabilitated automatically by the state. It just people didn't even have to apply for that or something. It was just made automatically. When we talk about special settlers, people had to do it manually. Without that, I couldn't access their files. You can only access the files of the people who rehabilitated. So I had to do that before, and then I could get the copies of the files. But their rehabilitation was also important to me because it was just couldn't stand this unfairness. Yeah, and I just had the feeling that since I got that close to these archival files, I should get them because otherwise it's not going to happen. Nobody is going to go so far or things going to change.
Do you have any sense of whether or not access to the archives that you use to find your Mennonite connections in Russia? And I think you mentioned earlier the archives are scattered all over the place geographically. Do you have any sense that it's getting harder to access those records under the current conflict?
Sure, yeah. I mean, it's not the sense, it's the knowledge. This is a difficult past that has never been quite worked through by the Russian government, and it's a so-called uncomfortable past. It was getting worse already when I was dealing with these archives, and now it's getting even worse. And I mean, it's not there is no surprise that it's getting worse because one can see so many parallels there quite easily. They don't want to give access to this past. That's quite understandable.
Is that one of the reasons why you left your job at the Gulag History Museum?
There were many reasons for that. I mean, in 2022, Russia started the full invasion of the Ukraine, and we couldn't understand the future at all, what it's going to be like. Are they going to close the borders? What's going to be with the museum? By that time, my girlfriend, she's a historian, and she was living in the States, so I decided to leave the country and be with her. because, as I said, the situation was really unclear, and it took an effort, a real effort, to get to the States in 2022. And now, basically, the museum is closed for the visitors for, quotes, fire security reasons or something like that, but it's just the cover. They just didn't want the museum to be open anymore.
How did you make the connection between you, your family, and the Mennonite Heritage Archives here in Winnipeg?
I don't quite remember, but probably I came across the archive website and I found this family photograph, which is the photograph, the Janzen family photograph, which I had this photograph in my family archive, but I was wondering what it's doing there, like in Canada. I could make an assumption because I knew that part of the distant family migrated all the way to Canada, but I was just fascinated by the fact that they did that, and they also brought all the stuff with them, and the photograph reached the archive, and it's just a crazy trip when you think about it, especially in that time. I think it wasn't even digitalized back then. It was just the description that I found, and then I asked Conrad to digitalize it so I could see it, and so he did. It turned out that that was the photographs that were used in this House of Heinrich book, written by Anna Epp Ernst. She's also kind of a distant relative of mine and a good friend of mine now. Conrad has also connected us via email.
She's here in Winnipeg?
She's here in Winnipeg, and I met her 2 years ago for the first time. Before that, we were just emailing each other, and I met her 2 years ago, and she's just a great person, and a friend of mine now. We're like very much connected.
What does it mean to you, or what value is it to you to know that some of your family records are saved in these Canadian archives here?
Well, it's mind-blowing, really. I'm grateful, and I'm glad that Mennonites are so crazy in a good way about their history, so they preserve everything. It was almost impossible to research anything from my father's side, but from my mother's side, I have this whole huge history of Mennonites, and I could find so much. Yeah, and I'm quite sure there's still a lot of stuff to be found. It's just a matter of time and possibilities. Yeah.
What is it about Jakob's story that really attracts you in terms of the Mennonite resistance or the Mennonite values about nonviolence?
Well, yeah, that's, I think, the nonviolence, the pacifism, and the opposition to the oppression and things like that. It's probably the main thing that attracts me the most. It's quite obvious that I like this association. Otherwise, I wouldn't be so much attracted to this research. Obviously, I have some kind of tendency to create this positive picture of my ancestors who were brave enough to contradict the system.
And it's such a tumultuous time right
Yeah.
now, particularly, I mean,
Yeah.
globally as well, in so many countries, but in particular with Russia and Ukraine right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just it's just wild how the history repeats itself.
Before all this research began and these discoveries were found, how familiar were you with the concept of pacifism and the idea of non-resistance and non-violence?
Yeah, I would say that I wasn't familiar at all, really. Really. It all came through the research. Yeah.
How has your work on Jacob and his family affected you in your life? Do you see yourself or think of yourself or your family or your homeland differently now?
I would say that this story affected me like 100%. I just had a feeling that I want to do it. There was no certain purpose or sense. It just, seriously, it just came from my heart all the time. Although it might sound like weird, but that was the best team, the best museum. It changed my life a lot. I really found my community there. I found my wife because of this work, because she's a historian, a Soviet historian. the research gave me so many new connections with so many nice people around the world, and also gave me some kind of new background. As I left the country, I still sort of can introduce myself as a, for example, Mennonite descendant, which is, it can be, because Mennonites are so international, you can still, for example, find a community across the globe. Yeah, it just gave me extra background just to feel stronger in this situation I'm in now.
Do you think of your homeland differently now?
Of course I do. I realized that it's one of the best ways to learn the history of your country through your family history. Yeah, as my example shows vividly, my family history turned out to go through the darkest periods of the Soviet time. I have a direct connection to that, and it inspired me or forced me in a way to understand what it was like for my family, like what it was like for my grandmother to be born on a special settlement, to be in this position of a second class citizen, or not even citizen, for like her first 20 something years of her life. And it just kind of helps me to explain where I come from. I would just encourage people to go into the family history if they have this urge, but they're like putting it aside or something. I would do that at the Gulag History Museum all the time. I would say, no, do it now, because you never know what's going to happen with these archival documents. I would also encourage people to try all the time, because sometimes people would say, no, I mean, this would be just impossible to get these documents. And I would say, no, but please just try. And then since I met some descendants of Mennonites, Russian Mennonites here in Canada in 2023, and I was just amazed that people were still interested in this history. It's just crazy, like miles away from Russia. And I would help some of those guys, and we would successfully get some documents from Russia as well, or Ukraine.
That's very prescient encouragement. Mennonites interested in their family histories have great concern about the safety of archives in Ukraine, that they might actually not just be inaccessible, but be completely destroyed.
That's right. And I don't have a complete understanding of the situation, archival situation. I mean, as far as I know, some materials are destroyed. In fact, some materials are like moved to safer places and not accessible right now, but hopefully will be accessible soon. Some of the documents, unfortunately, are stolen by Russians already. I mean, it's a tragedy that's going on there, not only for people, but like for everything.
Maria, thank you so much for your patience and tolerance of all my questions. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Dan. It was a great conversation. I did enjoy it myself.
That concludes the second and final part of my conversation with Maria Lotsmanova. She began researching her connection to Mennonites as an adult in Moscow. The Mennonite Heritage Archives hold some books and rare letters about Mennonites who were sent to forced labor camps during the Stalin regime in the Soviet Union. A group photo that includes Jacob Petrovich Janzen can be seen online at mharchives.ca. What are you taking away from this program? Let us know by dashing off an email to info@mharchives.ca.
Hello, I'm Archivist Conrad Stace. The Mennonite Heritage Archives is a community-supported memory center that relies on donations from community members like you. To support this program and the preservation of Mennonite history, visit mharchives.ca and click on Support, or give us a call at 204-560-1998. Thanks also to our partners, Canadian Mennonite University, the Centre for Transnational Mennonite Studies, Mennonite Church Canada, and Golden West Radio.
Coming up on Tales, I'll talk with Dr. Aileen Friesen, Executive Director of the Plett Foundation and Associate Professor at the University of Winnipeg. Thanks to the Tales team of Conrad Stace and David Klippenstein, I'm your host, Dan Dick. We'll be back next week with more stories for you. Thanks for listening.